Hello, this video is going to be a remake of or I guess a complete redo of the quest system. Just because I think it's going to be better to make it from scratch or almost from scratch together, so people know how it works. They can add things based on their specific projects because they'll know how it works, which is always good. Really, the sky's the limit with this quest system. You could do pretty much anything you want to do. You could start quests from a location, from killing an enemy, from talking to somebody. It's really just a few methods that you have to call in your code wherever you want. So we're gonna do an example of that with a dialogue system. So like doing like simple fetch quests and stuff like that. So we're gonna build it together, but not starting completely from scratch, just because there's so many things like UI, quest log, stuff like that that we already talked. We already talked about UI. We don't have to go over that kind of stuff, and just a few startup methods that I found in this asset on the Fab store. So it's the quest startup folder. So once you have that zipped folder in your downloads folder, you can just unzip it. I already did it. And then drag the unzipped folder into your project's content folder. Very important. And you cannot drag it from the file explorer into the editor. You have to drag it into the file explorer. So if you want, you could just right click content, show in explorer, and then it takes you to your project's content folder, and then drag it in here. Okay? And then you have to restart Unreal to actually see the files. And then it'll look like this. You have it, check that you have all the stuff, and you're good to go. But again, this is really just the materials. This is not, I mean, you could just, go off and make it from here if you wanted. But I think this video is going to have a lot of helpful info, and we're going to make a quest using using a dialogue system, which is going to be surely helpful, because this by itself is not really anything. You totally have to build it from here. So this is just an empty project that has nothing but that quest startup folder in it. And I also added a skeletal mesh for the player, which is the student-made mesh. It was made by one of my students, Rachel. I just thought it was awesome, so I just used it. And that is it. So, two things that I wanted to emphasize before I start this, because they're going to be very important. And those, because everything we're going to be doing is fundamentally simple, but it's going to be a lot. So, one is what and two is where. You have to keep those two questions in the back of your mind at all times. So, what is this code that I'm doing? What is this code that I'm writing or blueprinting? What is it doing? I'm going to make that very clear every step of the way. You have to make sure that you're locked in, and if you're ever at a point where you don't know what the code you're blueprinting is doing, then you need to rewind or something. And then where is it going? That's even more important. Always be mindful of what blueprint you're on and where you're putting the code, because where you put things matters. Too often, you see something going wrong, and it's like, okay, the widget's not popping up. Where am I supposed to be telling the widget to pop up? And it's like, I have no idea. No. You have to know where you're putting things. Most of the time, a lot of the time, it can be easy. Like a lot of the dialogue stuff is going to be on the dialogue component. All of our input stuff's on the BP player character, right? But some of it's not so obvious. So I'm going to make that very clear as well. And just make sure that you know what blueprint you're working on at all times. We're going to be mostly working on the widget blueprint. Okay. So first, I want to let's get this dialogue system really quickly. So window and then fab. And again, I just say that because we're going to talk through and make sure everybody understands everything. But if in case something goes wrong, we're all human. Things go wrong. If you know what is going wrong, then you should theoretically know exactly where you're telling it to do that thing and be able to find that point in your code and fix it very quickly. It will save you hours. Because instead of looking around your entire project for something where you have no idea where it is, it's your project. You should know where things are. So what and where. So the free dialogue system that I found is pretty good. It's called Pure Dialogue System. So just search that and click the Add to Project button, and then you're good to go. In a second. So Pure Dialogue System. If you want, you can go ahead and go to this default level and talk to one of the NPCs. You just run up to them and press E, and a conversation starts. So we're going to kind of get into that a little bit, but I'll leave that to people. I recommend just checking it out and seeing how it works. In the quest startup folder, all of the blueprint stuff in the blueprint folder. You in the quest systems folder, you have this data table, which is the green underlined assets. I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. Got to start somewhere. Might as well start here. This is a list of all of our quests. You know, data table is very self-explanatory. It's going to hold the data. So where is this? Where are these things coming from? They're coming from. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Yeah, let's just focus on what a data table is and how to add rows. Because these are how we're going to reference the quests that we want to progress the state of, set them to in process, set them to complete, and so on in blueprints. So if we hit this add button in the top left, we could create a new quest. I'm just going to stick with their naming convention and call it Q7 for quest 7. And then down here in the row editor, I'm going to change the name, quest name to missing photograph, just for whatever you want, really. I have some students who are making like a ghost game where you are doing favors for ghosts. So I'm just going to make a quest that kind of fits that theme. It's called missing photograph. And then the quest enum, it is actually edited in this enumeration, it looks like. So this is where we're actually populating those quests. So an enumeration is just a list of data that we can choose from in blueprints. So let's add one more. We can call it missing photograph. So every time you make a new quest, just got to remember, open the blueprints folder, quest system, add it to the data table, and add it to the enumeration. Those two places every time you want to add a new quest. So back to the data table, I'm going to change this enumeration drop down to missing photograph. So now they're linked. For the quest description, I'm just going to say deceased father misses his, I guess, also deceased daughter and yearns to gather her photograph to see her once more. All right, that's it. So that quest is set. We will talk about this stuff later. I mean, if you're curious about where all these parameters are coming from, it's coming from structures. So you know, quest name, description, all that kind of stuff is where you set. So if we hit this add variable here, which we will do at some point, and say like, this quest, we want to give, what are the quest rewards for this quest? We would add that here. We could add like a bool that says, does this quest give rewards? Yes. What rewards are they? Maybe it's coins or something. We would add all that stuff right here. And then we could set those settings for each quest. Anyways, let's make our first NPC. So I like to have all different tabs. So tab 1 would be for my quest stuff, and then you could right click and create other tabs. Tab 2 will be for my dialog stuff in the content browser. We have this NPC. Because we are going to use multiple different NPCs, presumably, for your game, I'm going to rename this BP NPC 1 to NPC base. So this will have all of the base logic for my NPCs. And then like we talked about in class, let's make some children. So I'm going to right click, create child blueprint class. And this will be the father for the quest. So I'll name it BP NPC father. Now it'll have everything that's on NPC base. And then I can differentiate. Anything I do on this is going to be specific to this NPC. So if I change his mesh, I added 2 meshes before. So that one is gonna have this mesh. And let's drag our new NPC into the scene and take a look at what the NPC does. So the important thing is this BP dialog component in the components panel on the left here. This is where we're gonna write our dialogs. But actually, let's test it out first, because I should have done that before. We go up and talk to him, and actually you're not going to be able to talk to him unless you're BP third person. So find your player character blueprint. You can just go to Window, World Settings to get this panel over here, and then open up the selected game mode, and then click the folder button next to the default pawn class to open up your character. And if you didn't add this BP interaction component to your character, hit the add button and then search for the interaction component and add that BP interaction component. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to interact with anything. So, okay, let's go. Once I add that component, I see this E to talk. And it looks like it's working, but I cannot advance the conversation. Okay. So I actually tested it off camera in the demo map, and it was working in that map. So thinking troubleshooting wise, what could be the problem? What's the difference between this map and that map? In that, I mean, one place to start would be the world settings, because those are different. So I'm gonna guess that it's something to do with the player controller. So let's click this folder and open up the player controller that we're using right here. And then if I go to the pure dialog system, where would they have that? Blueprints, here it is. BP pure dialog player controller. Let's just use this one. Let's keep it simple. I want to keep this video moving. So I'm going to go to my player controller, and this is where we're adding the mapping context to our player. So if you remember, the mapping context is holding all of the inputs. So it's like move with this, jump with this, so on. I'm going to copy and paste this whole thing and then put it over here. And then the mobile controls is giving me some errors. So I'm just going to skip that. So I'm going to pull out of this sequence node. There's then one output pin. And I'm going to drag that all the way down to the bottom of this skip mouse section. And plug it into that reroute node. And then I'm just going to delete this mobile stuff like that. All right, so that should be good. Now back on my main map, I'm just going to go to world settings and switch the player controller class to the pure dialog player controller. And we're just going to use that. You can fix that however you want. That's how I'm going to fix it. Now I can move, talk to him, and when I press space, the conversation continues. And then I can use my mouse to select responses. So that dialogue was written in the delete tabs, keep everything tidy, back in the BP NPC. So for my father, if I click on the dialog component and then I go to this config section over here on the right, I can see that there are these parameters that I can change. So I'm going to change the character name to father, I guess. And yeah, this is how we're gonna, let's just make a demonstration thing quest. Hello, traveler. I miss my daughter so much. If only I could see her once more. Jump to index, that's going to be the next index it goes to. So it starts at 0. So 1 would be index 1, this line here. Is there anything you can do for me? Oh, let's make him say, I left a photograph of her over by that wall, but it's too far for me to travel. I'm going to delete these responses by pressing this trash can button. Not going to worry about that at this time. And then this next node, it will make it jump to index number 2, where he'll say, why don't you go get it for me? And this will be the index where we give the player the quest. Why don't you go grab the photo for me? And then it looks like jump to index 0 ends the conversation. I'm not actually sure if that's how that works. I'll have to test it. And then index 3, I'm just going to delete this by clicking this drop down and then clicking delete. Okay. So that is our conversation. Let's actually design the quest to support that conversation. So back in the data table for the quest, DT quests, click on the quest that we made missing photograph, and there's this tasks array. I'm gonna hit the plus button. The first task is going to be collect the photograph. In process is fine. Text complete. I think that's going to be the text that shows up when you do it. You found the photograph. You found it. All right, and then one more task, which will be return to father. So it'll be like text complete. You returned. All right, and that's it. Going to save that, and I think next I made notes of what I should do. We are going to need to make more parameters in this dialog config, so that we could tell our blueprint what lines of text should we progress the quest state to complete, to in progress, or the task, so on and so forth. If that makes sense. So wouldn't it be nice on this text line? We have all these parameters. We want the text we wanted to say. We want the player response we want to give. Wouldn't it be nice if we could change a setting that said this line of text will give the player a quest? Well, the same way we can set these quest parameters with a structure, we can set these dialog parameters with a structure. We just have to find where that structure is in the pure dialog system. So pure dialog system, dialog system, structure st_dialog. There it is right there. And you can see all of this, all of these settings here are the same settings here. So that's important to understand. Where are these settings coming from? They're coming from st_dialog because this is a dialog. So, you know, okay. So we can add our own stuff. So first let's add a dialog that is going to ask us if we should switch quest states or maybe start a new quest. Yeah, so let's call it start quest ? And it's going to be a bool, which is a true or false value. So if this line has start quest set to true, then we will do the programming to start a quest. Which is, because we have that quest system, is just going to be a simple method. Well, now we need to know what quest we want to start. Right? Because we need to know that. So let's add another variable and call it quest. Yeah, quest. And that is going to be a type of eQuest. eQuest. Which, if you remember, I closed that tab, but we have an enum. Remember that enum that we created all of our quests? Where the heck is that? I can't remember. Wouldn't it be in here? No, I want to see it because I want. Here it is, eQuests. Oh, I was looking in the pure dialog system. Okay, so it's gonna get our quest from here, and so yeah, later we'll set that to a missing photograph. That's gonna be the quest we start. We also want to know if we should set a task state. So we're going to want to ask it about two tasks. Because let's say we're doing a quest and we want to set that task to complete. We're also going to want to start the next quest. We also want to start the next task to in process. So we're going to have one variable that's asking about set current task, which is going to be the one that we are currently doing, and that's going to be of type Boolean. And then we also want to ask if we want to set a new task as well. New task states. Let me even say set current task state or set new task state. And now we need to tell it what task, what task to switch. So let's create another variable and call it current task state, and this is going to be of type e tasks. Oh no, the current task state, that's going to be an integer, because in the data table for our quest we set each task we're going to refer to it by an integer, which is going to get the index number that it is. So like integer 0 would get this index 0. Integer 1 would get this index 1, and it would get that state. Oh, SD dialog. Current task state. I'm going to drag that by clicking all the way to the left and just drag that right under the set current task state. Add a new variable, which is also going to be of type integer, called new task state. Because if we don't want to mess with the tasks, we'll just leave this bool as false, and then we don't need to pass anything. So it's just going to help us with organization. I also forgot, we need to know what stage we want to set the quest to. So we know if we want to do anything with the quest, we know what quest we want to do it to, but we also need to know, do we want the quest to start and go into in process stage, or do we want to complete that quest? So let's make a new variable and call it quest state. And this will be of type e quest stage. So enumeration quest stage. So it's just going to be a drop down, in process or complete. I'm going to drag that with the quest stuff. So right underneath that quest stuff. All right, this structure is looking pretty good. All right, and now time for the coolest thing ever, in my opinion, which is if we go back to our NPC and we go to the dialog component, now we can see in these indexes of the array, those settings that we just made. Now, if you don't see them yet, it's okay. Sometimes it takes a while to populate. When I was making the demo for this, it took like 5 minutes. I think you could just close and reopen Unreal if you want to do it faster. But how cool is that? All of those settings that we just made in this structure, we can now see and change per index, per dialog line. That's a very powerful thing to know how to do using structures. The possibilities are endless. Like if you wanted to change the avatar per dialog line. Say if he says something and he's angry, you want to show an angry image. You can store that image as a texture 2D variable in the structure, and then set it here in the index, and then of course add the functionality for it. But yes, understanding how to use structures obviously is going to make you a lot stronger. I think looking at game development like it's Dragon Ball Z, we're gaining power levels. We're raising our power levels. Anyways, okay. So now we have these settings. We can set quest states per dialog line. Anything else on that? No, let's just move on. So thinking about where are we going to use this? Where are we having conversations? I had no idea. I didn't make the pure dialogue system, but so that's okay. But just thinking about it logically, where would you do that? You might think the NPC is where we start conversations. After all, the NPC is what has the dialogue component on it. So I see in this NPC there's nothing in the event graph. But remember, this is a child of the NPC base. So you can see the parent all the way in the top right corner over here. Parent is BP NPC base. Very handy to know that. If you click this pen, so this pencil thing here, it takes us to the base class, and we can see in the event graph the event interact, and it's calling start dialog. Perfect. That's what we were looking for. So if we double click that function, it takes us to the start dialog. So that's handy to know. Double clicking will take you to that function. So it took us to the dialog component. You might have just assumed from the start it's from the dialog component, in which case you could just right click on the dialog component and then edit BP dialog component. So you can just go to components like that. So here we have a start dialog function. This is a good chance to practice reading code and what it's kind of doing. So sequence node, when we start, it sets the bool that is talking. And then the sequence node is just doing things in a sequence. First thing we're doing is setting input mode to UI only, and then we're creating the dialog widget. And we're setting that dialog widget, importantly. We're doing that so that we have a reference for it when we later go on to the widget blueprint. Next in the sequence, we're adding it to the viewport, setting the starting dialog index as the current dialog index. We didn't get into that for this video, probably won't, but we'll leave that for people to do individually. And then we're moving on to the setup thing. So kind of thinking about going through everything, what your code is doing before you start working on it. So let's double click on this function, this setup function, so we can take a look at that. In this, notice, remember, where are you? It moved us to the widget blueprint dialog widget. If I go to the designer, it's this thing. And this is where the bulk of everything is going down here. This is the big battlefield in the war of game development. So setup is, and this is basically just building the widget with the parameters that we're getting from our ST dialog, right? So this is everything that all those settings we just made. It's getting a reference to those from the dialog component that's on our NPC. All right, so thinking about this logically, where do we want to check if we want to add a new quest or change a quest state or something like that? I don't think it really matters that much. I think we should do it at the end. So let's go to the sequence node and add a pin. And we'll do all that stuff right here. One thing that we're going to need to do is we want to feed it different information depending on what state the quest is in. If you talk to the NPC when you have the quest completed, you want him to say something different, right? So right now, the normal dialogue, we'll just keep that, the ST dialogue. We'll keep that as what they say when you talk to them for the first time. So where is this ST dialogue on? We're getting it from the dialogue component. So let's go to the dialogue component. And then let's go to the variables. And we can open up this little config section by clicking the drop down. And then we see the dialogues. We see that ST dialogue. So this is this. This dialogue, if we go back to our NPC father, is this. Because we made it public, it's instance editable. If you look in the details panel here, that's why we can see it on our NPC's details panel. So I'm back on the BP dialog component. Remember, that's where we are. I'm going to go to the dialogs and I'm going to press Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to call this one in process dialogs. Duplicate it one more time and call it completed dialogs. And then I'm going to compile the blueprint. And this is just how I'm choosing to do things. Remember, you could always do things however you want. You could add another one that's like after it's completed. And if you want them to say some new stuff. I'm keeping it simple as I can for now. So now if I go back to my NPC father, and I go to this config section, I see those new dialogs here: in process dialog and completed dialog. So let's say for in process, the same way we did it before, hit the plus button. Did you find my photograph yet? And check nothing. And then for completed, I'll add one saying, thank you so much. I never thought I'd see her face again. Maybe goes to number 1, the next index, and he says, I love you, wary traveler. While we're here, let's use our settings to actually tell our code what to do. So I'm going to open up the dialogs section and open up index 2. So whatever index you want your dialog to give the quest, we're going to check the start quest bool. We're going to change this enumeration, this drop down, to the quest missing photograph that we want to start, right? Quest state we can keep to in process because that's what we want to start off. Set current task state. Actually, I'm going to say set new task state because this is going to be a new task. And the index, new task state index is 0 because remember 0 is going to be the first one. Maybe I should change that to say new task state index, but just remember that's an index. Compile, sweet. So that setting should be all good. Gonna go next. I'm gonna open the completed dialogs, and on my index 1, where I want to mark the quest as complete, I'm going to oh, we need a new setting for set new quest state, don't we? Set new quest state. So I'm gonna go back to the structure for dialogs, because we want to ask if we want to set the new quest state, right? Or can we just do that with the start quest? Here's, if you want to double check how you're doing something, in the quest startup, in this asset that we have, there should be like an example object here, probably in the demo folder. Yeah, blueprint door. This has an example of the methods that we're going to use. So whenever we want to start a new tasks, for example, we use this node. And then all we have to do is plug in this information. So that's why we made that quest enumeration, the quest task index, and so on. So new stage task. And there's also new quest, I think. Oh, you can only see it if you pull out from the quest component. It's called new stage quest. And I'm thinking, because we're just going to call this node every time start quest is true, we could just use that for everything. So yeah, let's just, if we want to set the quest to completed, check start quest, and then once again choose the quest and just set the quest state to complete. I had to restart the engine really quickly, but off camera I went to the structure for the dialog, so SC underscore dialog, and just for clarity's sake, I renamed the start quest question mark parameter to new quest state question mark. So that boolean, I just renamed it so that, you know, because it's not always going to be starting a quest. Sometimes it's completing a quest. It's just setting a new quest state. So once I did that, I had to restart Unreal Engine, and then on the NPC, it just changed once I restarted it. I didn't have to change anything else though. The new quest state, yes. Here, looks good. And that everything looks good. Okay, so next. One more thing before we add the functionality to that is I want to add a couple more variables on the dialog component. So back to my dialog component. I'm going to add two more variables. So add button, and it's going to be called NPCs quest. We're doing a very simple version where each NPC is holding one quest, and you can add on top of that. You can add additional quests later if you want, but for now we just need a way of storing what quest is the main quest for that NPC so that we can get a reference to that quest state, which you'll see in a second. So NPC's quest is going to be of type E quest, so enumeration quest, and then one more variable called quest task index number. Task index is fine, and that's going to be of type integer, of course, because that's how we're storing our tasks. So because I made those variables on dialog component, if I go to my NPC, dialog component, I should see those settings. And this NPC's quest is going to be missing photograph, the one that we made. And oh no, yeah, this is going to be how we determine the final tasks for the quest. Because this is going to be the task that we check to see if it's complete in order to display the complete text dialogue. And that is just how I decided to do it. So it's going to be task number 1, which is technically the second task, because this quest only has 2 tasks. So whatever the index of your last task is what you put here. I recommend keeping it simple and just doing like 2 to start. All right. So let's go back to the widget blueprint dialog widget, because we know that's where we're going to display these dialogues. Because right now we have no logic to display different kinds of dialogues, and we have no logic to actually give the player a new quest, depending on whether we have this bool checked, right? So what are we doing right now? Let's be clear. We are going to check to see if this bool is true or false, and if it is true, we're going to start this quest. That's what we're doing. It's when I say it like that, it makes it seem so simple, which is good. So how are we going to get a reference to these settings? So that's the first question that you'd be asking yourself, right? Is how are we going to get a reference to all this stuff? Because I'm lazy, I just looked for a part of the code where it was doing that already, which is right here. This dialog, right, is the same settings that we just saw right there, right? Quest state, all that. So where is this getting the information? It's getting it from, if we go all the way here, from the dialog component, of course. So the only difference is we are going to check all of this stuff at the very end. And we also want to, pass the correct dialogue, because we have 3 different dialogues, right? In process, complete, and starting. So to make this a little bit simpler, I'm going to highlight these 4 nodes. And I'm going to right click them and then collapse to a function that I would call get dialog. And technically it's getting the dialog index, right? It's actually getting the dialog line, the specific line. So I'm going to name it get dialog index line. It's getting the specific, right? If we double click it, it's getting the current dialog index and outputting that over there. And because we're going to be using this in multiple different places and we're going to add a bunch of code to this, we're just going to turn it into a function right here. So I'm going to go back to the event graph, back to where we are doing stuff. By the way, it's up in the top in this main setup section. That's where we're doing all this stuff. Oops. Because this function is only returning a value, its purpose is to give us an output, right? it's not taking any inputs, it's only giving outputs. I'm gonna right click it and turn it into a pure function. Where's that again? Oh no, that's in the details panel. So just check this pure function box. So it looks, so the node turns green like this. And compile. So let's get started making the functionality for that. So I'm going to take this get dialog index line pure function that we just made and copy and paste that over here. Pull out, just like over there, I'm going to break st dialog so that we can get a reference to all of these settings that are on our NPC, remember? All of these dialog line settings. Here, remember, what's the first thing we want to do? We want to check if that start quest bool is checked or not. So let's hit B and click to create a branch node. That's how you check the if a bool is true or false. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the 2 output pin and find in our break st dialog. I'm going to open up the dropdown and then connect the new quest state question mark to the condition. If that's true, what do we want to do? We want to start a new quest. So remember, you could just look at the reference that's in the quest system that we dragged into our project. If you look at the box, you can see how they do that. They do it by just right clicking and getting get quest component. We can call this from anywhere because it's in a function library. You can see it's in BFL quest systems. So function library, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a library, a list of functions that we can use. I'm going to click that. And we should actually go and check that function library to make sure that it's pointing to what it needs to point to. So I'm going to go to my quest startup folder that we dragged in, blueprints, quest system, and here we have it, BFL quest systems. Let's open that up and make sure everything's good. So right now it's casting to the quest system character, which is probably not the character that you are using. So let's actually fix that. So right now we want to pull out of this return value and cast to, for me it's just BP third person character is the default. Whatever your character blueprint is, that's what you want to cast to. And that looks like it's getting the quest system component from there. Which I don't even know if we set that. BP third person. We did not set the quest component yet. So let's go to the components panel, press add, and then add that quest component. So it's a good thing we figured that out. And remember, where we're doing everything matters. This is on the character blueprint. Compile, save that. Back to the function library. Delete the cast to the quest system character and that target node. And then connect up the cast to your character. And then pull out of your as BP third person character output node. And then get the quest system component from there. It should be at the very bottom of everything. Get BP quest system component. And then plug that into the return node. And then finally connect the white execution pin so that the code actually runs. So now our character, we're actually going to have a reference to this quest system component. This quest system component that's on our character. That's the one we want to reference to, right? So back on the widget blueprint, WPB dialog widget. We can get back down to business because we're actually going to reference the correct component now. So if you remember, we're going to call of the components on the dialog component, we want to call quest stage, new stage quest. So we're going to start a new, there's also like a create quest component, but I don't know if there's a difference. I didn't look into it. Maybe I'm assuming there is some kind of difference, but if it's true, then yes, we want to go into here and start a new quest. So thinking, we can set this quest enum to our quest, right? And that will start it just fine. But then when we call this, it's always going to start that quest. What if we're talking to a different NPC, we want to start a different quest? So that's why you cannot just set it from here. You have to get a reference to the quest that we set here. Because remember, this equals this. And we set the specific quest for this dialog line here. That's the one we want to pass. So I'm dragging that quest setting into this quest enum setting. Quest state, same deal. I'm going to drag this quest state into this new stage input pin. There's a little bit of a discrepancy because I said state and they're using stage, so just that's okay. And then that's it. Easy peasy. That's done. On this dialog line now, it's going to start this quest and put it in the in process stage. So look how simple that is. So now we started the quest. Now we also want to start that new task, right? Because the first task is to go collect the photograph. So let's move on to the next stage. So at the end, I'm going to drag out to the next branch node. I'm going to press B and click, pull out there, check the next thing, which is set current task state, question mark. Going to pull that into the condition. I'm going to copy and paste this get quest complete because I don't want to be dragging so many lines across everything. And then from here, we're going to a new task stage or new stage task. Pull that into the true. I'm also going to take this false pin from the first branch node we made and connect that into this branch node that we just made. Because even if we don't always want to start a new quest, sometimes we still want to change the task without a new quest. So we want to check that anyways. Remember to double click to create these reroute nodes so you don't have too many lines. So if we're starting a new quest, starting a new task, excuse me, what's the index of the task we want to start? Well, we are going to set that right here, right? And then stage, we want to set that task to. Did we do that? We didn't make that. Let's do that really quickly. Oops. So back in the structure of the dialog, let's create a new variable and call it, we'll need one for current task and one for the new task. So current task state. What the? Oh, we already have that. The integer is not the state, it is the task. So I'm very sorry. We have to go back to the current task state integer and rename that current task. A little bit of an oopsie there. And then the new variable is going to be current task state. That's going to be a quest stage, right? E quest stage. That's how we get that drop down of stages. Gonna drag that under current task. Can I drag it? And then new task, we want to rename new task state to new task. And then create one more variable called new task state. It's a little bit easy to get turned around with this stuff. That's okay. And that is already of type quest stage, so that's looking good. If I'm lucky, that will update quickly. It did not. So I'm going to restart Unreal and come back. All right, I just restarted the engine. I went to my NPC, dialog component, and wherever I was setting that new task, it updated now. So on this dialog line, we're setting the new task to index 0. The state is in process. That's looking good. And then when I complete it, at the end, we are setting the new task state. We want to check that. By that time, it'll be task 1, which is returning to father, and we want to set that to complete. So when we set the quest to complete, we're also setting that task to complete. We're going to make the photograph after we do this, which is, so like the quest actor. So whether that's a person you're talking to or an object you're collecting, we will also change quest states from that thing as well. We'll do that soon. Okay. Good. That was a little bit of a setback, but we're good now. So back on the widget blueprint dialog widget, right back to business where we left off. Now we could set a new stage for the task, current task state. Let's plug that into new stage. Looking good. So, okay. One more thing to check. We want to check if we get a new task. So let's create one more branch node at the end, connect that. And what's the condition going to be for this one? This is going to be set new task state, question mark. Plug that into the condition. Try our best to keep it clean, even though it's just not going to be clean. Copy and paste this get quest component. And then once again, we're just going to pull out a new stage task node. Plug that in here. And remember this false that we just made. Important to remember this or else it will not work. Plug it in to this branch node as well. Is we want to make sure that we check every bool. We gotta know whether each bool is true or false. The number of the new task. Let's find the new task output pin and plug that into the num task here. We could also just like create a new one of these, but I don't know. I just feel safer pulling out of the same one. This doesn't look so horrific, kind of, right? New stage is the new task state. Oops, come here. All right, and then if that one is false, there's nothing else to do. We checked everything. So I hope this is making sense. Like if you had a variable here for an avatar, you would pull that avatar here and make like a set brush node. I mean, you could do whatever you want using this functionality. And I just realized for these task nodes, you're also going to have to plug in the quests name for them. Because you're always going to be advancing the task that belongs to the same quests that you set up here anyways. So, oh my god, there's just no way to make this look good. Yeah, that looks okay. So it should look like that. And we should be able to test that out. We talk to him. The dialogue is playing correctly. The name shows up correctly. Go through it. And yeah, the quest started. You can see in the top left corner over there. The quest started and the tasks are showing. That's awesome. That UI pretty much looks unacceptable though, which I'm sure everybody will go through and make the UI look pretty and use actual images for the buttons and stuff like that. But just for testing purposes, just so we can actually see it, I'm going to go to the quest startup folder, blueprints, widgets, additional, and the task lists up here where the tasks are showing up. I'm just going to drag an image from the palette panel into the overlay and then drag it so it's on top of the vertical box, not inside of it. And I'm just going to go to the brush, expand it, just make it bigger, make it black, and lower the opacity. And that is what's going to hold the quest for now. And then also the little pop-up. Where's that pop-up that shows track quest message? I was like in the corner. I'm going to anchor that to the middle. So go to the anchors drop down, control shift to the center. And maybe just like put an image behind that as well. Image. I'm actually going to wrap them both. So select them both and wrap them both in an overlay. And then anchor that overlay to the center. And align them both to the center. And make that image bigger. What the heck? Oh, I gotta make the overlay bigger. Whatever, that's good enough for now. Make it black. And a little bit transparent. Just so we can see what's going on a little bit better. Also, the quest system that we imported has a quest log, but we have to make the hotkey for it. So the quest system character that came with that system, so quest startups, blueprints, and then BPSQS character. I mean, we could very easily do this ourselves, but I think this video is getting a little long, so we could just copy and paste this whole default toggle quest widget from the event graph on the SQS character onto our character blueprint. So for me, it's BP third person character. Go to that event graph because, you know, we do all the input stuff on the character blueprint. And I'm just going to copy and paste that here. And I'm going to right click on this quest widget and create a matching function. And then I think I'm going to have to open it up and actually copy and paste that function. Double click the function on the quest character. Get everything. Because all it's doing is setting the visibility when we press it to visible and then setting it to hidden the other time we press it. Usually you do that with like a flip-flop node, but they're doing it their own way, which is fine. Paste that here and then connect it to our purple. Connect the purple starting node to the branch. And I think that let's check out everything. First, let me go talk to him again to test out the new UI. Alright, good enough. It's still very ugly. I still gotta make the task thing bigger, but that's not what this video is for. And I press tab, it makes the UI pop up. Awesome. I click the quest, I see the quest description. Oh, but then I can't tab out right after I press that. So let's fix that really quickly. When I press the button, you can't tab out immediately. So let's open that widget blueprint, which is, where is that? Blueprints, quest system. No, blueprints, widgets, quest panel. And then click on the button. Where's that button? The quest button. Oh, it must be its own widget. WB Quest, I think it is. So WB Quest, click on the button component there, and then search for focus, and uncheck is focusable. See if that, now if I click the, I don't have a quest. Let me grab the quest really quick. Now when I click it, I can untab. I can tab out. Also, if it's starting quest, if you have a quest right when you open the scene, open up the quest component. So quest startup, blueprints, quest system, BP quest system component. In the event graph, it's creating a quest at the very beginning. So if you want to create a quest when the game just starts, like go talk to the introductory character, you can start that quest from here. But we don't want to do that for this game, so I'm just gonna alt and click on that sequence node so that this gets unplugged. So alright, let's move on. Let's go back to the WBP dialog widget, and you can see all the stuff we did. We did so much today, and I feel like this, I mean, if you got this far and you understand what's going on, I feel like you should feel good, because this was a lot. And again, just a little tip, if something you want to do, because you guys can do this however you want. Like if you remember, we collapsed a bunch of nodes into this function here. If this is looking too messy for you, you could just highlight these nodes that we made under the number 2 sequence pin, right click them and collapse them into a function, right? And then you could just call that function checking quests. Or you could just get the part where we are checking quest and collapse that into a function called check quest. And then after that, collapse the task stuff and call it check task or check current task, and then a new function for checking new tasks. And you can make it look a whole lot neater. But I mean, this doesn't look so bad to me. So for the sake of time, we're gonna. There's so many lines. The next step is to pass different dialogues. So right now, this is breaking. If we open up this function we made, it's just getting dialogues here, right? And that's what's turning into this. Those are the settings that we're breaking here. So if we look at back at our NPC, it's breaking this dialog tree, right? But remember, we also have this in process dialog and the completed dialog trees, and we want to break those ones depending on what state our quests are in. So we need to somehow figure out here what state our quest is in and pass a different dialogue depending on that. So we are going to make, well, I saw they were doing something similar on the quest component. So quest system component, gonna go ahead and open that up. And there was some function over here that was doing something similar. All quest tasks completed. So all quest tasks completed function. I just decided to work from this. So I duplicated it, and I'm called the new function check if quests complete. And really it's like check if quest and task are complete. Because remember, on our dialog component, we made those variables, NPCs quest and task index. I'm actually going to rename this task index to final task index. Or actually task index requirement. So what task index is required to get to before this quest can be considered complete. And on our NPC, we set that to 1, the second task. So back on the quest components, we are in the new check if quest complete function here. And we want to pass those two variables here. So we talk about this in class all the time. How can we pass variables to this function? How can we do that? We want to pass the NPC's quest and the task index required variable. And we're going to do that by using input parameters. So I'm going to click on this node, go to the details panel, and in the input section, there's already this quest enum. I'm just going to rename it for clarity to quest to check. And then we just need plus the task to check. And that's an integer type, right? And then at the end for the output, so what this function is going to ultimately return, let's change that to is complete. Because that's all we want to know. We want to know if this stuff is done or not. And we can keep that as a boolean. Right now, it was kind of confusing to me. I didn't look into it for that long, what the purpose of this function is. All I know is it's helping to get the current status of quests and tasks. All right, before we actually go further, let's take a little bit of a closer look at what this is actually doing so that we can understand it and edit it. I know that all I really care about is that here it's getting the status of quests in this for each loop, in this array here. But all I care about is really getting the status of this quest, the quest that I want to check. So I know that I don't really need this array. And then I clicked on this function because I was curious on what this OK bool was doing. So I double clicked to open that up, and it looks like it's again looping through this array of quests, and it's checking if any of these quests equal any of the quest in the quest, in eQuest, right? And if it's true, then it's setting it to OK. And if it's false, then it's setting OK to false. So basically, it's like, does this quest exist in our list of quests? So I took this to basically mean, is this quest started or not? So if OK is false, then the quest is not started. If OK is true, then it is started. So if the quest is started, Oh, we're gonna delete. Really, we should be checking. Here we should just be getting whether or not it's completed, but whether or not it's started. So I'm gonna change that output to is completed to is started question mark, or rather, it should be not started question mark. So if I'm just going to delete all this stuff in the middle because it is confusing me, and then I'm going to bring this. So if it's true, if OK equals true, then that means that it found a quest that equaled a quest that we had, which means that it is started. So that means not started would be false, which I thought I just changed it to not started. Well, it's not. All right, let me just do it without the question mark. So that would be false. And then if it's false, return node, then not started would be true. So now we're going to try to get a reference to this task and get the stage that it's on so that we can check what stage it's on and play a different dialogue depending on that. Let's make another return node or another output called task stage. That's going to be of type quest stage, quest stage, which is in process or complete. Now we have this enum here for both of those. Let's pull out of our task. So you have to open up this break node and get a copy. And the index we want to get is the index that we pass here. Because what is this again? This task is the task that we set on our NPC. So this one, we're going to pass here. So this is going to check task number 1. Which again is technically task number 2. But it's index 1. So here we're going to get that, and we want to break that. Break s quest task. Get that stage here. And just plug that in. If it's not started. All right. And I mean, technically, I feel like you don't need to. If the quest is not started, then you don't need the task stage. But whatever, looks good. Again, all this stuff is just how I'm choosing to do it. There's probably a million different ways to do this stuff. So now we have our check quests. We have their stages here. Now we can pass that here. So I'm back on the widget blueprint. I want to call this check if quests are complete on the widget blueprint. So I'm going to get another reference to the dialog component. I could really just copy this. And remember, this is in the get dialog index line function that we made. Now what we're about to do, very important to know what we're doing, right? Remember, we're going to get references to the other dialogues, like our in-process dialogue and our completed dialogue. And then we're going to play different ones depending on the states that we pass here, depending on our quest states. So from dialogue components, I'm going to first get a reference to the NPCs. NPCs quests, as well as the NPC task index required. And then from get quest component, right? Because this checking stuff is on the quest component. So I need to get a reference to the quest component. And from here, I'm going to call that function that we just made. Check if quest complete. And now I can plug in the NPC's quest to there in the task, which is an integer, into there. Going to connect the start node, so it starts by doing this, and then let's just start with the easy one. So if it's not started, I'm gonna right click and click a branch node, connect the branch node to the not started bool. If it's not started, what dialog do we want to play? We just want to play the original dialog, which is right here. So I'm going to take this return node and maybe go up with it. Maybe that'll be cleaner. Bring all this stuff here. And yeah, it's just business as normal. If we haven't started the quest, then we're just going to play that dialog. So what's if not started comes back false and it's in progress? Let's check that first. So let's right click and create an equals enum. Equal enum. Like that. Then plug it into the task stage. And then it'll look like this now. So if this enum equals in process, then what do we want to do? We want to play the other dialog. So I'm actually just going to copy everything. Copy all this actually. And bring it down here. If this is false, actually not only does not started have to be false, but also b plus click to create a branch node. Both these things have to be true. It has to equal in process. So if that is true, let's delete this dialogs, drag out from the dialog component, and get the in process dialogs. So we want to play. Did you find my photograph yet? That's what we want to play. We're going to plug that array into the get. So if both of these things, if it equals in process and not started is true, then if those are both true, then we are going to play this one. I'm trying to make this as least ugly as possible. But if it doesn't equal in process, let's pull out of this one more time and create another equals enum. And one more branch node. If the equals completed, then we want to play a completed dialog. So I'm going to copy and paste this one more time. True. And instead of getting the in-process dialogs from the dialog component, I'm getting the completed dialogs from the dialog component. That doesn't look so bad. I mean, you could probably find a way to do that cleaner. But so now this return node is getting a different output depending on these conditions that we just set up. So I hope that all makes sense. So that's this function, right? If we go back to the event graph, that is this function. So this output here equals this, what it's passing here. So this, where we're setting the dialog, is going to be different depending on those conditions. So we're getting to the end here. We don't have the other NPC. That's one of the last things we need to do, but we can test the functionality for the quest being in progress, seeing if it switches dialog. So I'm going to run over and talk to him. Doing the correct dialog. The quest is starting. See the quest in our quest tab. If we talk to him again, it's playing the in process dialog, which is great. And when I'm pressing space, for some reason, it's repeating the dialog 2 other times. I don't know why it's doing that. And I have some errors saying that it tried to access index 1 and tried to access index 2 from in process dialog. I don't know why it wasn't just ending the conversation, because in my NPC I only have one index here. So obviously it's not going to find index 1 and 2 because those don't exist. But I don't know why it's trying to look for them. Yeah. So this is the first time this problem has occurred. This did not happen when I was doing the demo. So I think this is a good opportunity to exercise problem solving thinking and what could we possibly do to fix this problem? Because one thing I could do is look at the pure dialog system more and see why it's deciding to go to the next dialog line or not. Because I'll be honest, I don't really know why. But just for the sake of time and because we can do things our own way, because we are awesome, let's just make it so that we can force it to close a conversation. Because one thing that I did see before was, where's the dialogue component? I saw in the event graph, we have these 3 events, and one of them is called end dialog. So luckily, we know a way of calling events from dialog lines. And we can do that from the structure. So I just searched stdialog, and we're just going to do this for the first time together and see if it works. I'm going to add another setting here to stdialog called end dialog ? And it'll be a boolean. Save that. Go back to my NPC, and I'm going to restart Unreal Engine really quickly. So I just restarted it super quick. Now I see end dialog is here. So I don't want to end it on this dialog because I actually want this dialog to show up. So I'm going to make another index in my in process, index 1. And here, all I'm going to do is check end dialog and do nothing else. And all the other lines work fine, so I'm just going to do it for this line. For any line that it's acting buggy or weird and you just want to force close it, I'm going to do this method. So where do we add the functionality for this stuff again? We did it in the widget blueprint, right? In the widget blueprint dialog widget. So we had where we did all this stuff. So really, I would suggest putting all of this in a function so that we could add pins and do other stuff, because I think I'm just going to add another pin to the sequence node of our setup. And in pin number 3, we're going to need to get a new reference to our dialog line, right? And we're going to have to break it again. But this time we just want to get end dialog. So I'm going to press B, click, create a branch node, collapse that. Bring this out to, so coming out of number 3, where is it? Up here. And if end dialog is true, then we need a reference to the dialog component. And just call end dialog from the dialog component. That's the Control F logic right there. Let's see if it works. I have no idea. That's the first time I'm doing this. We're going to see how it works. Start the quest. That's all good. And then it force closed the dialog. Yay. Oh, God, I still got errors. Okay, so these errors say it's attempting to access index 2. So that's the same error as before. We don't have index 2. We only have 0 and 1. And then from the set current type text string. So this is when it's typing out the text. So it has like a typewriter effect. So it's looking for strings that don't exist, because, you know, every string is made up of like an index for every letter in the string. And we set this text to nothing. So I'm going to just set the text to close. Very kind of duct tape solution. That should get rid of all those errors. And this isn't going to show because it just immediately ends the dialog, right? And then I'm going to add one more index, and I'm going to leave this one empty because for some reason it's looking for the next index. I don't know why. It's a free dialog system, so it's bound to be a little bit wonky. Let's go talk to him now. Get the quest. That, and press cancel, no errors. So I mean, it was functioning before. It was just a bunch. You don't want all those errors. So that's one way you can fix those errors. It's just add some text and then just add an additional empty dialog line. Okay, so the last step is to add this NPC. But at this point, we should be home free. Like, we did all the complicated functionality. Hopefully it wasn't too complicated. Hopefully everybody understands everything. I think if anything was confusing, probably should like put that in the comments. Because if you have a question, I'm sure other people have questions. But yeah, I never test ran this part because I assume that it's just going to work because we already did all the functionality for everything. Now it's just about all right, let's make another NPC. So quest startup, that's where the NPC, no, the NPCs are in the dialog system. So example NPC, let's right click NPC base. Remember our NPCs are children. Create child blueprint class. And then NPC is going to be a photograph. So I think just keep it simple. I'm going to make the NPCs, even the objects that you collect as NPCs. That way when you walk up to the object, the interact button will pop up and all that. I mean, you could just like add some kind of shape and then turn it into a blueprint with this button over here in the right. But this NPC has like I think it has the interact interface, so you'd have to add that interface all over again, and it's already childed. It's already inheriting from NPC base that has this stuff. So I think it's easier just to open up a new NPC, set the mesh visibility to hidden, and then just add a static mesh, whatever your static mesh is, whatever object you want them to collect via the components panel. For now, I'm just going to make a little makeshift photograph. I don't want that cube. I want a pointier cube. I think my head's in the way of the good cubes. No, I've come this far. I want it to be the cube that I want. Okay. And then I'm just going to make it flatter. Yeah. And then rotate it. Not that way. What the heck? Rotate this way. That's going to be my photograph. You guys will have much prettier quest items. All right, same deal. So this already has the dialog component and all that kind of stuff. So photograph is the name. Thinking about the system that we set up, let me think about this for a second. We want to set the quest. I want it for this NPC too. I want it to say different stuff for like if you haven't started the quest yet. I wanted to say something else. So the task index required. This one I'm gonna leave as 0, right? Yeah, because that's the first task. So if this task is not complete yet, if this quest has not been started yet, then we are going to play this. I'm going to get rid of all that default stuff by pressing the trash can. If it's not yet started yet, it's just going to say, that's a weird place to leave a photograph. That's it. In process, I'm going to say, so if the quest is started, what an adorable child. I better get this back to the father. And then here we have to do some stuff. We have to check set new task state, or set current task state and set new task state, because we want to set the current task collect the photograph to complete, but then we also have to set the next task, which is index 1, return to father. We have to set that to in process, right? So that's why we made those two variables. That is, took a long time for that explanation to pay off, but it did. And then that's it. Completed dialog will add. I mean, really, you should make a variable that's like destroy this item. That's really what you should do. I will leave that to you guys to do. So the same way we made that end dialog, we added it to the struct. You would make should destroy this, and then you could destroy it on whatever dialog line you want. Because once he picks up, you're kind of simulating him picking up the photograph, right? So really, there shouldn't be any completed dialogue for an item that's been destroyed. So I'm not even going to bother with that right now. But say you had an NPC that you wanted to come talk to after the quest is done. Then you would be like, then you would have completed dialogue. I already did this. So we will fulfill that for testing purposes. One other thing I forgot in the in-process dialogs. Even though we're technically not changing the quest state here, you have to change the quest to the same quest, missing photograph. Because it's getting these dialogs, it's getting these tasks from the quest that we set here, as you will remember from how we set it up. So I'm going to compile and save that. I also remember when we return to the father, we set the task index to 1. But really, when we return to the father, we need to check the first task. So we have to check 0. Because return to the father won't be complete yet. Only collect photograph will be complete. So the task index required variable on our father NPC needs to be set to 0 on that first NPC. All right, let's do a test run. Really, when we're doing test runs, should set everything as close as possible so that we can test things as quickly as possible. So I'm going to drag my NPC photograph over here. Press play. Let's talk to the photograph first. It's playing that's a weird place to leave a photograph. That's perfect. To go talk to NPC. He's going to give me the quest. The dialogue is ending. If I talk to him right now, it said, "Did you find my photograph yet?" And then it ends. If I talk to the photograph, it switches. Yes, we did it. What an adorable child. I better get this back to the father. And you see in the top left corner, it turned green, that task. That's just part of what the dialogue system already knew how to do. So let's see if I talk to the photograph again. Yes, it's playing the completed dialogue. Everything is going very smoothly so far. One more step to see if it all works. Talk to him again. And he's playing the completed dialogue. So we did good. The code works. We should feel good. We used fairly simple coding logic to do something that is that's pretty complicated. I mean, it's a quest system. I love you, weary traveler. And now he's repeating it again. So he's doing that same weird bug, but now you can see that the quest shows that it's complete. But it didn't end the conversation right away. And it's giving me errors. So we definitely don't want that. So let's fix that really quickly. So that's just the same way we did that. We're going to force it to close, right? So let's add what in the completed dialogues. Let's add another index and just say close. And we're going to check end dialogue. And then add even another index that's just completely empty. For whatever reason, I think it's just this dialogue system. Unless I unknowingly did something wrong, I think it's just the dialogue system. So let's just super quick test that one more time. So you can think everything that we learned from this video, really the sky's the limit. I think you really can't easily figure out how to make this thing get destroyed using the same way we've done everything. Once we pick it up, it ended. Perfect. The dialogue ended. So let's say you finish the quest and you want to come back to this NPC and you want him to say something else. How would you do that? Because right now it's just completing the quest over and over again. So how would you do that? It would just be the same way that we've been doing everything. So you would make a new variable on the dialogue component, right? Where is it? So right now we have task index required. You would say like a new variable over here that's like task fully complete, like task index required to fully complete the quest or something. Just something that can register that all of the tasks are done. Because this one is just checking that task 0 is done. We need to check that task 1 is done. And then when task 1 is done, then you play like what's the word for it? Like you'll play the normal NPC line. The same way we did, I think we did that in the quest component here. Yep, right here. Check if quest complete. If, I don't know. You can figure it out doing everything that we did. It's going to take some thought, but right now it's functioning. It's perfect. Nobody's really going to question that. Thinking about how you would expand this, a lot of what we did is on the WBP dialog widget. Let's say you wanted to start a quest when a player enters a new location. So you could set up like a dialogue, or you could set up like a box collision, and then you just really need to remember, get a reference to the quest component and call new stage quest. And then you just need to store references to the quest you want to start and the task you want to start and what stage you want to set them to. Maybe once they reach a certain location, the stage is set to complete. You would just store these variables somewhere on that box collision as public variables, and then when you put them in your scene, you can set them in the details panel. There's an infinite amount of things that you can do, especially now that you understand how to use structures. So now it's just, this is as good as a start as you can get. Everything else will be up to you. But right now, this is a perfectly good functioning quest system for NPCs and objects and fetch quests and talking quests and stuff like that. So that's it for now. Bye.